You have 3 weeks until final exams, 3 weeks to save your grades, 3 weeks for a total academic comeback. Hi, I'm Mateo, and I've compiled all the tips, secrets, and strategies I've used over the past 4 years to get straight A's as an IB diploma student, perfect scores on all the AP tests I've taken, and a 4.8 GPA. Today is day 1, and over the next 3 weeks, you're gonna go from your own worst enemy to an absolute academic weapon. There are 5 sections to this guide, each as important as the last, but they don't apply to everyone, so feel free to skip around in a way that helps you the most. First, you need to control motivation, because without motivation, you'll simply finish watching this video and go on to the next one, and never actually get any work done. When I was first placed in advanced math in the 4th grade, I used to cry a lot. Homework always sucked, and half the time I didn't even know what I was supposed to be doing. To this day, I actually still blame 4th grade math for not teaching me the measurement unit. But it was that year that I realized something that revolutionized my motivation to do math. Like I said, I got about half the questions in that class wrong, but it was the half that I got right that instilled in me a horrible addiction. An addiction to the right answer. So much dopamine was released in my brain whenever I got a problem right that I knew I had to do everything in my power to keep doing that. I've never done math because my parents told me to. I've done it because there's a part of me that actually finds it super satisfying. And this is actually the concept behind a 1985 study called the self-determination theory by psychologists Richard Ryan and Edward Deci, which is one of the most influential to our understanding of motivation. They argue that intrinsic motivation leads to more effective and sustainable learning as it is driven by personal interest and satisfaction rather than extrinsic motivation. By applying this concept to other fields, physics, biology, writing, foreign language, you can harness motivation, and it makes doing homework and paying attention in class so much easier. But motivation is always going to be hard to maintain. That's just a fact of life and one of humanity's deepest struggles. Not to get too philosophical. So most of the time, to make up for feeling less motivated than the sloth from Zootopia, you have to be disciplined and consistent. The next chapter will focus on test-taking tips that you can use even when you're feeling lazy so that you can get better scores on every type of test, from AP and IB to good old regular exams. Starting with AP tests, there are only 2 things you need to do at a bare minimum if you want to get a 5. Number 1, pay attention in class, because most teachers actually know what they're talking about and will do a good job preparing you for the test in May. Number 2, you need 3 weeks minimum of focused comprehensive review and practice tests. When I took APUSH, this meant watching crazy amounts of Heimler's history before constructing a timeline completely from scratch without looking at any of my notes or Google from time period 1 to time period 9. IB tests are very similar, but since they are less focused on multiple choice, your strategy needs to be more focused on writing. I recommend practicing papers 1, 2, and 3 if you're an HL for at least the magic number 3 weeks beforehand. Personally, for the HL English exam, I've already started doing practice timed writings, and it's November. Moving on, the strategies for the SAT and ACT are pretty similar but with different packaging. Imagine the ACT as a fast-paced obstacle course. You need to move quickly, tackle a variety of challenges like math, reading, science, and English, and keep an eye on the clock. On the other hand, the SAT is more like a series of puzzles. Still challenging, but with fewer sections and a stronger focus on problem solving and critical thinking. 3 weeks doesn't give you much time to start studying, but it's not too late. I recommend buying the official guide to your respective tests because it is packed with full-length practice exams, advice, and strategies. It's a $50 investment that'll pay dividends in scholarships and college acceptance letters. Trust me, it's worth it. Remember, the most important thing to do for test prep is practice. And the most important thing to do during practice is to revise every single mistake you make. And I'll get deeper into that in a second. Final exams are the easiest type of test to study for, but they also add a layer of unpredictability that makes them a little bit harder. Every exam will be different, so you need to ask your teachers weeks in advance for the test format. Then, you should apply the study techniques in the next chapter, but remember that not every technique works for every subject. The one universal rule of study techniques that I learned from the book The Talent Code is that deep practice is king. That means working through the hardest concepts. A good idea is finding the unit test you did the worst on during the semester and understanding why you failed. Practice may be king, but the trick is practicing the right way. So let's pretend you're playing Minecraft. You started a new world a couple days ago, built a house, killed a cow or two, and now it's time to hit the mines. You gather a handful of pickaxes and head down. 2 hours later, you resurface with 7 diamonds, 27 gold, 39 iron, and 5 stacks of cobblestone. But of all the blocks you mined, only 22% were really worth all that effort. Sure, cobblestone is nice, but not your main goal. That is the 80-20 rule. 80% of the effort, that's the cobblestone, will get 20% of the results. And 20% of the effort, that's the diamonds, gold, and ore, will get 80% of the results. In the academic world, this rule means 80% of what the average Joe Schmo studies is practically worthless. But 20% of it is gold. So you need to focus on that 20%. But how? First off, by understanding the rubric. What the teacher wants, revising your mistakes, and not overworking yourself by doing useless work. Which actually ties into the next study technique that is completely passive but incredibly important and essential to memory consolidation. 8 hours of sleep at night. No kidding. It's scientifically proven. Okay, but seriously, active recall, when combined with either pretending or actually teaching other people, is a lethal academic tool. For example, last year in calculus, I would always be in the library with my friends the period before a test, quizzing each other, explaining hard concepts, and learning new things just minutes before the exam. Well, leaving it for the last minute is not smart. Quizzing and tutoring each other is. At the end of the day, it worked well for me. So consider grabbing some study buddies and trying it out. Remember that the 80-20 rule and active recall won't work in the context of every subject. A couple years ago, two of my best friends had very different approaches to homework that I think will help clarify for some people, maybe even you, how to overcome the last thing that's holding you back from having a full academic comeback. For the sake of privacy, I'll call them Jake and Leo. Jake understood that his homework was for him, not the teacher. Leo, on the other hand, rarely did his homework. He'd rush through the work the night before it was due, barely paying attention to the details. When the final exam arrived, Jake felt ready. He breezed through the questions and recognized the patterns from the homework. But Leo found himself overwhelmed by the test. He had not spent enough time studying and couldn't even remember key concepts. In the end, he barely passed. After the exam, Leo realized that the effort Jake put into his homework wasn't just about grades. He understood now that it wasn't a chore, but a tool to develop the self-control and work ethic that would help him succeed and achieve his goals. What you need to realize, though, is that Jake wasn't obsessed with all the details. His notes didn't look like the Mona Lisa. He didn't color code his pens or freak out over a Notion spreadsheet. He did what he had to do. No more, no less. Leaving time for things he cared about like sports, extracurriculars, friends, and family. Doing homework and taking notes can be painstaking if you overthink it. If you saw my notes, you would not be impressed. I'm literally one of those people who shove the papers into their backpack on a whim. But I have a system that works for me. The important papers that I really need are kept organized, but the busy work and nonsense that our teachers give us, in my opinion, can go directly to the recycle. These are two extremes. I'm definitely closer to one end, but you might not be. The important thing is that you figure out what end of the spectrum you fit in and what strategies work for you. The slumped era is over. I urge you to join me in a challenge these next 3 weeks. 30 minutes of scrolling a day max, locked in on academics and straight A's after final exams. I, like many of you, am hearing back from my applications to university, you guessed it, in the next 3 weeks. And all of the hard work is paying off. My friend, congratulations. You made it this far because you are that student. You can do great things. I believe that, and so should you.